We asked our Instagram followers who is the best Rakdos commander, and now we can tell you the top 10 best Rakdos commanders in MTG 2024 update. Just making it onto the list we have Strefan, Mora Progenitor. First printed in 2021's Crimson Vow, the flying vampire says at the beginning of your end step, create a blood token for each player who lost life this turn. When Strefan attacks, you may sack 2 blood tokens. If you do, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the field tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. To start with, as can be popular in Rakdos, these decks are all out vampires. There have been over 400 vampires released in the history of MTG, and with over 75% in our colours, we have all of the options here. So we want to pile our deck with those vampires. The more we get, the more we can attack, and the more end step blood triggers we can get. Of course, blood tokens and vampires go hand in hand, so throwing in more ways to get blood tokens or more triggers from blood tokens is key. A good commander with plenty of synergy. These decks are really fantastic.
And you are not funny.
I'm very funny.
Moving on to number 9 we have Rowan, Scion of War. Printed the once in 2023's Wilds of Eldraine, this menacing wizard can tap and make spells you cast this turn that are black and or red cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. First of many Rakdos Pain decks, here we leverage various cards and mechanics to deal damage to yourself, whilst also punishing your opponents and taking advantage of their life loss. We can go Group Slug, include cards that passively deal damage to all players, including yourself. This strategy puts pressure on your opponents and can lead to their life totals reaching critical levels. Then use all of that life loss to play those huge, big, devastating cards at a highly reduced rate. It can be a lot of fun to pilot, but be prepared for the risks and potential challenges that come with constantly lowering your own life total.
Stop hitting yourself! Stop hitting yourself! Stop hitting yourself!
Next on the list we have Chainer, Nightmare Adept. Originally printed in the 2019 Commander set, Chainer says discard a card, you may cast a creature from your graveyard this turn, activating once each turn. Whenever a non-token creature ETBs under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste until your next turn. Chainer's haste granting ability allows you to immediately utilise creatures you discard, bypassing the usual waiting period. This makes him a formidable threat in the command zone, ensuring you always have access to a hasty threat or reanimation target. Meanwhile, his second ability lets you cast creature cards from your graveyard, extending the value of your discard effects and enabling powerful combos. As a commander, Chainer excels in decks that focus on graveyard recursion, madness, and reanimation strategies. You can dump creatures with ETB or death triggers, such as Gary or Kakusho, and repeatedly bring them back for maximum value. This is one minion I don't hate. As a side note, I really hate the minions. If you have a problem with that, come at me.
I hate it! I hate it! I hate it!
In at number 7 we have Raphael, Fiendish Saviour. Printed in 2022's Commander Legends 2, Battle for Baldur's Gate, other demons, devils, imps and tieflings you control get +1/+1 and lifelink. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature was put into a graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 devil token that when dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. A few ways to go here, the first one being the old reliable aristocrats. Among demons, devils, imps and tieflings, there are many ways to get our creatures sacked and create us a nice pinging devil creature token. Ways to do that on each player's turn is key too. Really maximise those Raphael triggers and have a nice wide devilish army. Of course, if aristocrats isn't for you, then you can lean into demons. With over 190 of them in MTG and nearly 90% of those being in our Rakdos colours, this is definitely a deck you could class as devilishly disgusting.
He said it! He said it!
Narrowly missing out on the top half we have Obnixilis, Captive Kingpin. Printed in 2023's March of the Machines, this demon has flying and trample. Whenever one or more opponents each lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Obnixilis. Exile the top card of your library. Until your next end step you may play that card. The 4th possible Obnixilis MTG commander, and one of the best, this is a commander that loves those pingers. Extremely popular, incredibly in red, having a big bad bulk of cards that will trigger your opponents for 1 life will continuously trigger our Warlord Tyrant, boosting him up and giving you extra cards to play from exile. And with our commander and plenty of other cards to help keep exiling our library, having treasure making cards can never go amiss. We have the chance to play extra cards and we don't want to run out of mana, so having treasures to be able to afford this is advised. Speaking of treasure, what is a pirate's favourite word? Next on up we have Kardur, Doomscourge. Originally printed in 2021's Kaldheim, when Kardur ETBs, until your next turn, creatures your opponent's control attack each combat if able, and attack a player other than you if able. Whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. One of my favourite commanders from an incredibly strong set, this commander loves that forced combat. We're playing the dozens and dozens of goad loving cards, especially popular within those Rakdos colours. Force our opponents to attack each other, leave our side of the board safe to build up, and then pounce on our opponents for the easy win. With other cards to make us benefit from when our opponent's creatures die, we can easily again build up our board and have an easy way to victory. What was your favourite commander from Kaldheim? Let me know in the comments below. Just missing out on the bronze medal spot, we have Yuri, Master of the Review. Printed in the OG 2020 Commander Legends, whenever you sack a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Yuri. When Yuri dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. A few ways to go with Yuri, the first focusing on that treasure. Treasure with this commander is a double win, as not only going the treasure route gives us more options with our mana, but as you sack your treasure to spend it, you're triggering Yuri and making it even stronger. And with around 300 ways to create treasure in MTG, the options are nearly endless. And as is common within Rakdos, we can add in all of those cards that will reward us even more whenever a permanent is sacked. A commander that has had a few reprints, including a very expensive one, this is my favourite on this list, and one I'd argue could possibly be even higher. For the third best commander, we have Angie Valkenrath, another printed in that 2019 commander set. Hasty Angie taps to discard a card, then draw a card. Whenever you discard a card, if it has madness, untap Angie. And as expected, this deck revolves all around that madness. A keyword first introduced in 2002's Torment set, this ability allows a player to cast that card for an alternate cost if the card is discarded. In the last 22 years there have been over 60 Madness cards printed, and with over 80% of those being in Rakdos colours, this means an Angie deck kind of fills itself. A must have in this deck though is Valkenrath Gorger. Give all of your vampire creatures madness and to have even more options at your disposal. A powerful commander, but as there are limited madness cards, it does mean a deck like this tends to look the same across different players. Runner up and the second best commander, we have Rakdos Lord of Riots. Printed way back in 2012's Return to Ravnica, you can't cast Rakdos unless an opponent lost life this turn. Rakdos also has Flying and Trample. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponent has lost this turn. This deck is all about draining our opponents. Whether this be from even more pinging cards like we've seen earlier, or other cards that hit straight to our opponent's life, we want to be draining non-stop. With the many life drain cards, we can then cast a variety of huge creatures. These can range from demons, making sure we stick to the same creature type as Rakdos, or go super evil and fill our deck with all of those Eldrazi. Now that is potentially the best avenue to go, as these creatures are colourless, meaning with plenty of life drain could allow us to cast these evil creatures for free. If this ever happens to me, I'll take a page out of Lord Rakdos' book and riot. Winner and the best Rakdos commander is Prosper Tomebound. Printed in the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms commander set, at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. Another Rakdos commander and another that loves exile. Here we want all of the ways to play cards from exile, because whenever we do this, it triggers Prosper and we get to create a tasty treasure token. This can range from those cards that straight up trigger exile, or even playing cards with mechanics like Cascade. Rakdos does love an exile trigger. Lastly, play all those cards that focus on tokens, create double the amount of treasure, drain our opponents when we create or sack a token. This deck gives so much room for synergy that I think it rightfully does deserve the title of Best Rakdos Commander in MTG. Apologies, jury.